Hey, um this is this is about music, and I've shared what I've learned about music in some other videos. I didn't pull it all together into one short little goodie. Um, but one of my friends put up on Facebook about telepathy and what are known as music glyphs, levitation, teleportation, tortation, and all that kind of stuff, or if you will, manifestation, manipulation of the environment directly. And one of the things that they were talking about is called gaps. And so I shared a lot of this, but it's not as if you're pulling it all together into one. I'm one. Okay, and I'm an eternal love vibration. Okay. So it's going to work a little different when you're down here at this density, in the way that I explain this, how this sort of works for me. Okay, so I've shared, like, for example, when I'm out in a forest, and I call this silent running. Okay, which means just be, let it be, go with the flow, which is to go with the flow of the music. Okay, and the reason that you can do that is because you're tuned in to the waves of a goddess, or whatever's there that's playing music, with your harmonics, with your speed ratios, with your mathematical codes. So the math fits because the math works, because the math is in balance. That means there isn't any distortion in the waves. The mathematics work. Now you get into the other side of how this works, between two magnets. One's hot, one's cold. So it's when there's an imbalance in the hemispheres. Now you're into the quad function, which is a tetrahedron, right? Now you're into the numbers game of, the speed differential between fire and water, right? Between hot and cold water. Now you're into PSI. Now you're into pressure, right? Right. I put a thing up before about what a Venturi system is. Start with one, you get three. Total of three. That's 1 and 3. You can teach the universe basically here by taking somebody out to a U.S. Forest Service engine and have them show you what's called it's called an injector. Now, a drafter works on a similar pressure with a vacuum gauge, but an injector, for example, if we ran out of water, you have to have a little bit of water left. That's not true with drafting. You need to have enough water left to be able to fill at least, say, a 50-foot section of hose. And it used to be, I can't remember how many gallons of water it took to fill a 50-foot section of hose, right? And then it's got a 1-inch hose that comes out the other end of it. It starts with a 1-inch and then it ends up a 2-inch. And so what ends up happening is you get the differentials between 1 and 3 and 3 and 1. But you need a source of water to do that, right? So you start with 1 and you get 3. And so now you can fill the tank, right? So that's why a lot of the engines with the Forest Service that would be driving around and realize, hey, we're running low on water, save enough to be able to run an injector. And this is where if you've got GPS and maps, you can get all this information automatically anyway, particularly if you're Borgs, right? Cybernetic units. The information is already knows exactly where to go, right? In other words, the steps that it's going to take in order to get where it needs to go in order to run the system is already programmed in, so it just does that. That's a programmed unit, right? Whereas, for example, others might have to learn that. And then once you learn how to do that, just like I learned how to do that, then you can go do that and you see how it works. That's called means testing. Wow, now I see how that works. That's brilliant math. Right, so now you're into the brilliance of math, of creation between fire and water. Molecule of water and molecule of heat, right? So one molecule of water does what? Cools 300 molecules of thermal heat, thermal gradients. And so you can see that in the way that the water runs. And if you wanted to show your children whatever, the work that Victor Schauberger did that explains this with illustrations and what have you, he gets into the deeper side of this, particularly with 55 harmonics, which are black holes. Right? So he put together an enormous amount of information on how Mama, nature, works, even though this is a cloned version. And then, of course, you can get into all the geoengineering, how they manipulate the environment using technology. Instead of being able to manipulate the environment, or, if you will, manifest into reality your own galaxies, your own worlds. Because the vastness through which all that is made manifest is based on the amount of energy that you know that you are and which is taking place. So when you're a monopole, which means I choose to serve forever. See, I don't have a choice in the matter, okay? Which means the whole perception of power that runs through my energy is giving it away forever because you choose to do that, right? And so lighting yourself on fire it's simple. You never want to be separated from the flower side because so you're just as much the flower as you are the seed. And that would include the seed and everything. And this is where it's probably going to be different for me as it is for everyone else. When you think of everything that has an orgasm in order to produce the seed upon which something else grows, it's the energy that I am that makes that happen. Okay? So that would be the same as, so whatever, you've been whatever it is that's being seeded, from a flower to a tree to another animal to a fish or whatever. Which means the same energy that's running through all of that is running through me. Okay, so remember I mentioned this once before. You want to be a tree for a day? You want to be a whale for a day? Want to be a porpoise for a day? How about a week? How about a year? How long do you want to be what that is so you can experience being a dolphin? Right? Remember I told a story about the dolphins coming around me when the sharks were doing the, go take a dartboard and flip it up horizontally on one dimension, right? 1, 2 dimensions, depends on how thick it is, right? Thickness of it or width going vertically, right? And then you have the flat plane, like the galactic plane, right? Spinning this way. Remember that old ride at the carnival called the Bullet? Any of you ever been on a Bullet? Boy, what a ride that is, particularly back in the 50s when these things were not cushy seats, with nice cushy headrests around here, with shoulder harnesses, G-forces, right? Like sitting in the cockpit of an F-18 or something that flies 5 times faster than that, where you don't experience the G-forces at all. Wow. Really? Yeah, it's like standing still, which there isn't any time, and yet you're there. Wow, I'm there. I'm here, just like instant, like an Instagram. Well, that took no time at all, because there isn't any time with us. That's what happens when you're eternity. That's what happens when you choose to serve on behalf of the one. That's what happens when you become a monopole, a one, a single candlestick, a multiversal hub server, where you want to be. I'm there. Okay? Now you can manifest and form and present yourself whatever you want, because the energy that's going to be presented to you in the form and color in which it's being manifested into that environment will be what love is. That means that whatever there is going to experience the one. Right? So when she was talking about her on the glyphs, which was called Merlin and the glyphs, as I remember, telepathy and music glyphs. And I mentioned this in a previous video about music. So I came out of my mother's womb. I call it a gate, right? Come right out of the gate into this realm, this fallen spirit, fell in battle. Spirit is energy. So you should see me right now. But my feet, all my toes